Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to the SOS Show Live with Mary Evans. I'm your host with the strong belief that there's power in sharing stories. SOS Show stands for Share Our Stories. It's a platform for the Black voice to tell their story. If we don't tell our story, somebody would tell it for us. I have amazing guests today. But we're going to first look at this interesting video. Guys, I want you to help me bring Bakari K. Lumumba to the audience. Where's our clapping, Lexus? We got to clap for you, Bakari.
Peace.
We have to welcome you to the show with a standing ovation with the clapping. How are you today?
I'm doing just fine. How about yourself?
I'm actually doing really good. I want to talk about just a second how I met you. You know, Facebook, the platforms are so strong when it comes to networking, finding people that you want to interview on the show. And I was looking for somebody, you know, Dr. Umar Johnson was one of my first interviewees, and he followed Marcus Garvey, and everybody don't agree with what he say. I don't agree with everything he say, but the brother do speak some truth in a lot of things that he say. So I was looking for a male that sort of understand. Marcus Garvey was very strong. Things that he believed in, I think, is just amazing and impactful for the Black community. So I want to talk about that because one of the books, what is one of your favorite books? Because I've been following you and I see you post one book in particular.
Absolutely. Yes.
Race First by Marcus Garvey.
Yes. Race First, the Ideological and Organizational Struggles of Marcus Garvey and the Universal Negro Improvement Association by Tony Martin. For those of you who don't know, Tony Martin was the world's foremost Garvey scholar. He unfortunately passed away, but he was responsible for actually putting together the Marcus Garvey Library with, of course, Amy Jakes Garvey.
Okay. Tell us a bit about Marcus Garvey for the people that don't know who he is and what did he stand for?
Absolutely. So for those who don't know, Marcus Garvey, born in St. Ann's Bay, Jamaica in August of 1877, he was a Pan-Africanist. So what that means, he believed in the political, social, and economic empowerment of Black people, not just in his own country, but throughout the world, right? And so Marcus Garvey, according to many, is considered the greatest Pan-Africanist that ever lived, right? So if you don't know about Marcus Garvey, check him out. He was the creator, the progenitor of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, African Communities League. He's most famous for what? The Black Star Line, right? And so for those of you who don't know, many people who think Pan-Africanism is just something that we came up here in the Western world, Kwame Nkrumah, who was the first president of Ghana, put a black star on a Ghanaian flag to honor Marcus Garvey's Black Star Line, which Marcus Garvey created to compete with the British White Star Line.
When you say Pan-African, tell me exactly what that means when someone says I'm Pan-African.
Absolutely. So simply put, Pan-Africanism believes that Black people, African people throughout the world are part of one human family, and that's the African family, right? And we believe that being African is our most salient and most important identity. So you could be you could be African, you could be Black and be a Christian, be a Muslim, be Buddhist, you could be a feminist, you could be an economic capitalist or whatever. But we believe that the most important identity you have is what? Your African identity. And that we should work and coalesce around that to build and develop our own communities so that we can restore ourselves to our traditional greatness.
So what are your thoughts when you hear people say, I don't consider myself African American or Black?
Well, I think these are individuals who are quite frankly dealing with an identity crisis, right? But we living in the Western world, we're living in a society that is in which anti-Black racism is omnipresent, right? You turn on the TV, you're facing it. You go to school, you're facing it. You go to work, you're facing it. So as a result, some of us develop negative coping mechanisms, right? And those negative coping mechanisms is we tend to turn to abstractions. right? To where I'm not black, I'm just a human being. Or if it's other people that try to make other identities more salient, maybe their gender, maybe their sexual orientation, or even their religion.
And do you believe that when we were brought over, as slave, we lost that identity, and we have been, I would say, battling, trying to find out who we are? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yes, I think it's twofold. One, we know that there was African memory that was lost. I think James Baldwin said to be African American is to be African with no memory, and to be American with no privilege.
Yes.
So we're dealing with that on a daily basis, right? But I think part of it that we also have to understand is that we have retained some Africanisms in African American culture, right? I cite W.E.B. Du Bois's PhD, his dissertation on the Philadelphia Negro, right, in 1899. We could cite many of the Africanism and African American culture in terms of looking at African culture retention in terms of kente cloth, right? The braiding hair, wearing head wraps, even when we go to the Black church in the practice of shouting and so on and so forth comes from the ring shout and, of course, the Congo. So there are we do have forms of African culture retention in African American culture, but unfortunately, because these things aren't taught at an institutional level, we oftentimes aren't aware of them.
So do you believe in Christianity?
You know what? My parents are ministers, so, you kind of put me on the spot, but I actually am an atheist. I am an atheist, but I grew up in a Christian household. And I do believe that there are truths in all religions, right? And so my parents would say the biggest truth is respect and honor your father and your mother, right?
Yes.
I believe there are truths in all religions, but I myself actually practice a form of Pan-Africanism that we find in Marcus Garvey's ideological son, Carlos Cook.
You know what? I'm going to purchase that book. And it's worth the money, you say, huh?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, that's Marcus Garvey. Like I say, that's definitely, you guys, if you don't know who Marcus Garvey is, get his book, read about him. He's powerful, really powerful. I also want you to explain a meme. When I have people come on the show, I always go check out their page and see what they're about. And this meme here, the top says damaging to our children, 2021 Grammy Awards, wholesome family entertainment. I would like you to elaborate on this meme.
Absolutely. Well, I got a lot of pushback from this meme, right? Some people felt I went too far. Some people felt that, I was right on the spot. But so I think for me, the issue is we see this kind of push to where we want to control and limit the type of entertainment that our children are taking in. But at the same time, we see them promoting an image of Black women as sexually lascivious, right? And we know that the image of Black women as having these insatiable sexual appetites actually comes from Middle Passage. When, of course, the white men were raping Black women, and the justification was, well, you can't rape the willing, they always want it, right? We see the sexualization of Black women with Sarah Barton, the Hottentot Venus, right? We see the sexualization of Black women throughout the American Western media. So the issue I have is that, and I'm not a Black woman, of course, but when we really look at some of our race leaders, the Ella Jo Bakers, the Ida B. Wells, the Anna June Coopers, right? The Mary Church Terrells, they pushed back against this idea that Black women were just sexual creatures, right? But they were thinkers. They were more to them than just being sexual. So for me to see the image of Black women now being praised as merely sexual in nature, I think it's a situation where we're actually regressing, right? And I think part of that is because we don't know the history.
I see. Yes, powerful. And we were talking earlier about Black media, and that's why the SOS show is so important to me, because we don't have, we need more outlets that's Black owned, where we can represent and we can tell our story and we could talk the truth without being put in Facebook jail, your page being taken down. And I say this all the time, and I'm gonna have Alexis put it up. When you have a show and you have it on the platforms, social media, whether it be TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, they own all of your content. And we have a beautiful website that's done now, and we're going to strategically plan to move our show, and they can watch it on the website. Because when you start really getting deep and talking about Black issues and solutions, and going hard and raw, telling the real story. Sometimes you get blocked. I stayed in Facebook jail a few years ago, but it tones you down, and I want to bring shows that's impactful and we could tell our story and tell it like it is, so we can help some people. You know what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
yeah, we're gonna eventually, this is where we're gonna be headed, is to the www.thesoshowlive.com, so we can bring some great shows to you and we don't have to worry about anybody shutting us down. Now
Absolutely.
let's talk about stand your ground.
Right. So of course I live here in Ohio, go Bucks, the Ohio State University, right? But for many people that don't know, the stand your ground law actually started today in Ohio. And as we know, we've seen this in Florida and other places, this actually almost is a license to kill, right? So we live in a situation where this looks like it might be lethal weapon 3, right? So with that being said, white vigilantism has been on the rise since Obama was in office. We're going to have to look at some very prescriptive ways of how we can protect ourselves. And I believe in doing so, we're going to have to be responsible, legal gun owners. I think we will have to go to the range. I've taken my children to the range, taught them how to shoot, because we're in a situation to where our lives are actually on the line now. And the thing about the stand your ground law, typically, right, there was a castle law. You break into my home, I have to announce that I see you, I have a weapon. If you step backwards, if you flee the scene, I can't shoot. The stand your ground law is now what? You can see someone, they can flee, but if I draw my weapon, I can still shoot. Because even though they're fleeing, I can argue that the person is still a danger to me. Doesn't make sense to me, but this is now the law. So we have to be very cognizant of the laws that are being passed and how they affect us and how we're going to move as African people here in the Western world, particularly here in the United States.
We have to, it's just, I'm just wireless. You're absolutely right. What I want you to do, because I told you at the end of the show, I was going to let you take over and do your thing. I want you to talk about anything that you want our audience to know, as long as it's teaching, educating, impactful. Let's go, Bakari.
Absolutely. Well, the biggest issue for me, and I actually wrote a piece on police genocide, right? We know there's the George Floyd trial going on right now in Minneapolis. But the issue for me is we need an executive order. So I think there's 3 ways we can actually look to try to solve this issue of police genocide. We know the Biden, Kamala Harris administration, they're in office. They passed an executive order for Asian Americans. We need an executive order that I'm calling the Equal Protection Act, right? That will make any shooting of a civilian by police, right? Unarmed shooting of a civilian, a federal crime. Now we know the conservatives love mandatory minimum. So if a police officer shoots an unarmed civilian, mandatory minimum, 25 years to life, right? That needs to be a federal law, because, and the reason I say federal is because typically when we look at situations like Rodney King, if we look at situations in other parts of the world, like we had the sister in Louisville, right? What happens is when it's at the local level, right, we know that juries are poor. The jury pools come from voter registration. So you may live in a majority Black city, but that doesn't mean you live in a majority Black county, right?
Right.
So, for example, if you are in Cleveland, Cleveland is a majority Black city, by Cuyahoga County is a majority white county, right? So when they pull the jurors are going to be most likely white, and they're more likely to what? Exonerate the officers. This is what happened with King. But when the officers were charged at the federal level, hey, we're not going to do this, stack the jury with a certain racial group. It's going to be evenly distributed, and then you're more likely to get a conviction, right? The second issue is, and we know there are some organizations in the Black community that's been around for quite some time that actually advocate and articulate that we need to separate from what? These white oppressors, right? And I say, okay, well, let's actually make it happen. For example, if anyone's familiar with the Church of Jesus Christ and Latter-day Saints, they outlawed polygamy. There were many members of that community that said, guess what? We still want sister wives. So we're going to leave Salt Lake City. We're going to go to northern Arizona, southern Utah, create our own municipalities where we're the mayor, we're the city commissioners, etc., we're the police, and then practice our own lifestyle. I believe that we can do that. Some people say, hey, that's nonsensical. That's too far out. That's going to take too much. Absolutely not. How do you think suburbs were created? This is white folk that said, I don't want to live with Negroes. I don't want my kids going to school with Negroes. I don't want little Mary going across the street and playing with Jamal. So we're going to move to a rural area of the county and develop it. And that's how you got places like what?
Yes.
Pontiac. That's how you got places that if you're in Cleveland, like Avon Lake, etc. Right? So we can, and now what's what? If Black people who are Black-minded is the mayor, If black people who are black-minded is the police chief, we shouldn't have to worry about police genocide anymore, right? We could actually deal with law enforcement in a just manner. And here's the last one, which many people might feel a way about this, that there may be a time where we have to clap back. We know this. When we talk about the Deacons for Defense, right? And you had white folks, some of them actually sheriff's deputies. When we were marching in Mississippi saying we're going to kill this, that, and whoever, Deacons for Defense said, don't worry about it. We got you back. We got your back. If they want to firefight, this is what they're going to have to get. Because the reality is the protesting isn't solving the problem.
It's not solving the problem.
We scream, we yell, and guess what happens? Not guilty. We don't even get an indictment. So at some point, we might have to go watch the Battle of Algiers. That talks about the Algerian resistance to French occupation in North Africa. And we might have to take on some of those prescriptive solutions.
Whoa, you preaching. I want to say hello to Donna Bryan and Donna Jean Brown. We appreciate you listening. Guys, if you out here, let us know where you're listening from. Please like, share, and comment. And I'm telling you, this is what it's about, is bringing topics to the show that we can talk about and we can learn and educate. When, you hit me hard when you said clap back. It even hurt me to my heart to even think about that. That's a direction that I really think that if things don't change, that's exactly where we're going, because you said it. We're so tired of marching and preaching and begging people to treat us right and don't kill our sons. We love our children just as much as you do, but it comes a time when you just get tired. And I heard a guy say just last week, they say, we got so many of these so-called gangsters in the street.
Absolutely.
Killing each other. Where these gangsters at when they out here shooting us and killing us for nothing? Where the gangsters at? And I said,
absolutely.
But wait a minute, Bakari. I'm like, no, don't even talk like that. They like, Mary, like for real? Like, we've been doing this stuff and it's not working.
Right. And the reality is, I don't mean to cut you off, is Malcolm said this 50 years ago. He said, we will never get protection from the federal government. Right. He said, so at some point, we're going to have to protect ourselves. When we look at the late, great Black Panther Party, the late, great Dr. Huey P. Newton, right? People don't want to talk about the fact that he had a PhD. But the reality of the situation is they said, we are going to have to defend ourselves from police. So they started patrolling the police, not because they wanted to be adversarial, not because we don't have a respect for law enforcement, but because the reality of the situation is they're not doing their job. For example, and I'm going to shut up because I know I'm monopolizing the conversation, but we all pay taxes, right? So when you pay taxes in whatever particular city you are in, you're paying for fire service. What we're getting with the police is a situation where, for example, the fire department comes to your house and sets a fire. Right, instead of putting out the fire, they're setting the fire. So instead of protecting and serving, they're actually bringing violence to the community. The reality is, if anyone could talk about this, we talk about race soldiers in the Black community, right? They act like they're the Gestapo, right? You would thought they were Hitler's goose steppers in World War II, but they show up sometimes with their chest puffed out, trying to cause a problem.
They do.
Because I actually am a veteran, right? I served 6 years in the Ohio Army National Guard, and there were individuals in the National Guard who told me, hey, I want to be a police officer, not in my hometown. I want to go to Dayton. I want to go to Cincinnati, and that's where the fun is. I want to kick doors in. I want to be, shoot out the OK Corral. So we have to understand that many individuals are going into policing not to protect and serve, but to To get into firefights, to push people around, to be, they didn't have any friends when they went.
They want to be bullies. They bullies, really.
Absolutely.
But you know what? And one thing, talk black to me. Thank you. Oh, listen, that's what we do on the SOS show. Please like, share, and keep the comments coming. Hello, TN Talk. A lot of people talk about all the bad things Black Panthers did, but one of the things I loved about them, I was reading, is that when Black was pulled over by the police, somebody was called in and they sit behind that car until they saw everything was safe.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What happened to that? Because just the thought of, you pulled over and that somebody is coming to make sure that you're okay and the police doing what they're supposed to do, it's almost like we have regressed. Instead of going frontwards, we've been going backwards. Okay.
Absolutely.
Bakari, you are brilliant, powerful stuff. And that's what I like about your interview here with you today, Bakari, is you bring solutions.
Absolutely. We have to bring solutions. We have to. And And the reason why this is important because we have a lot of people who like to philosophize and intellectually masturbate. They can tell us about how racism affects us in all areas of human activity. Then you ask them, well, what should we do? Then we're going to go to commercial. Like, we got to be serious about this at some point. Like, listen, you're the intellectual. You're the smart guy. You went to college, right? Tell me what we do. For example, with my children, when they come to me when they have a problem, I don't say, wow, well, that's very powerful what you told me. I can understand how that makes you feel. No, Dad, how do we solve this problem?
I love it.
I can recall my son being 4 years old. He says, hey, this kid pushed me. I said, okay, I'm going to teach you how to fight, right? Solve the problem. He got him when he gave him that work, right? Because, we body by Lumumba over here, right? But I to say that we have to be solution-oriented, right? And I don't know if we're going to get to this, but the basic solution is going to come from what? Developing the family unit.
And that'll be our next show. That'll be our next show. I told you we're going to come in, hit them real hard, give them 20 minutes, let them want more so they'll stay tuned in. Guys, we coming back with another show. Bakari, I can't wait to bring you back on. We're going to wrap it up, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, share, and comment because we are going to come back with some strong, impactful shows. We appreciate you. Please tune back in. And thanks for listening. Bakari, thank you for coming on the show. The SOS show.
Thank you.
I know they gon' remember me, 'cause I'm gon' leave a legacy.